Not everyone's parent did that. And so it ended up separating students a lot of the time. So what they did is they started putting kind of the students in the same class and giving students the option to do both. And so freshman and sophomore year, a lot of the English and history classes were called mixed honors classes. So you was everyone in the same class, which was great. A big diverse class, lots of opinions, lots of, mixed experiences and abilities. Same thing with science too, it was biology. Math, I took trigonometry that year, which was pretty fun. And freshman year was, I guess, it was just welcome to high school. Sophomore year, the history. Freshman year, our history was kind of world history, like ancient Mesopotamia, early civilizations. And then sophomore year, they had a really cool world history program where there was 2 semesters, and each semester you got to take a different elective. And they had Latin American history, African history, Middle East history, Russian history. But I remember I took Middle East history, which was taught by a new teacher who was struggling. And so that was, unfortunately not the best educational experience. But Russian history was taught by this teacher who'd been doing it for years, and he was absolutely great at it. There was 6 units maybe, and in every unit, or once throughout the semester, instead of taking the unit test, you could do a creative project. So once throughout the year, and then at the end of every unit, certain, a sixth of the class would present their creative projects. They would do paintings, they would do videos, they would do like posters. It was a lot of fun. And so for mine, I had this idea. At the time, I was really into the Tupac song Thug's Mansion and the acoustic guitar version specifically. And there was a friend in my class named Connor who I knew played the guitar. And he was also a little bit of a slacker. I think Connor, if he was listening, would agree that his sophomore year, he may have been a slacker in Russian American history. Anyway, so we were allowed to do these groups, these projects and partners. And I went to Connor and I said, "Hey, Connor, I've got this great idea for a project." He's like, "What is it?" I said, "We're going to do a song and all you have to do is learn this guitar part." And he's like, "All right, send me the song." And he's like, "I learned it last night." And I was like, "All right, great." He's like, "I seriously don't have to do anything else?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do the rest." And he was like, "Sick." So then we would just go to his house and practice and how to write. I wrote a whole version of Thug's Mansion called Stalin's Mansion. And I have the lyrics somewhere because I should find them because they were really good. I remember it started, "A place to spend my quiet nights, time to unwind, so much pressure in this life of mine. I cry at times. I once contemplated invading Germany and would have tried, but in 1939 there was a non-aggressive pact I signed." That's good stuff. That's good stuff. And so we did that, and then we got a little overexcited, and Connor wanted to do some Rage Against the Machine, who was really into. So after Stalin's Mansion, he launched into Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of, and instead of Killing in the Name of, we just shouted USSR. And really the class was confused, and I think blown away. The teacher loved it. He loved it. He told us it was one of the best ones he's seen in all his years. And our friend who was presenting at the same time, she did a drawing, and she got mad at me because she felt that she got an A- on her project because our project was so extravagant. And she was a bit of a grade grubber, so that also made me smile. Math, I went on sophomore year. I did BC Calculus, the AP class, which was a good time. For science, we also had an advanced science track where you would do basically a 3-year. Freshman year, everyone did biology, and then everyone had to take chemistry and physics. You were required to take 3 years of science at least, and the school offered AP chemistry and AP physics, and usually you would have to do normal chemistry before you did AP chemistry and normal physics before you did AP physics. But the school offered a 3-year program for people who wanted to do both. So the sophomore year, you would do both chemistry and physics, and then junior and senior year, you would do both AP chemistry and AP physics. They called it Chem Phys, and it ended up being a class for the science nerds, which I was a part of. And so sophomore year, we took Chem Phys. I took Spanish my freshman year, but hated it because maybe that was like languages were an academic subject that I was maybe the least talented in. And I think math and science came so easy to me that a subject that I had to try and felt I just didn't want to do it. And so I switched from Spanish to Hebrew, which was a less strenuous language class. And from Hebrew school and summer camp, I knew a bit of Hebrew already. So junior year, tons of AP classes. That's when a lot of people started loading up on AP classes. There's AP US history. Like I said, Chem Phys. We had AP chemistry and AP physics. Gym class, you got to start to take electives. Once you got to junior year, that's when you really started to see the tracking and the kind of academic segregation happen. You know, the school, again, was pretty racially diverse, but as you got up to the higher grades, you would see that the AP classes were mostly, you know, wealthier, whiter kids, and the non-AP classes were less white, more Latino students, more black students, and less affluent. And that was something that kind of everyone was aware of, but went unsaid at the time. And there was... it was always kind of hotly disputed, and they were trying to figure out ways to fix it. And there was, detracking was one of the efforts, but that has, the mixed bag of, is it not pushing forward the advanced students as much as it could? Whereas the tracking, maybe didn't help the lower achieving students, and especially because there were a lot of teachers there who had been there for a while, and the longer the teachers had been there and the better teachers got to choose the classes they got to teach. They had, seniority over the classes. So a lot of times you'd have the better teachers, the more experienced teachers teaching the AP classes, and the newer teachers, the less experienced teachers teaching the non-AP classes and the regular classes. And so that was, contributed more to the academic segregation, really, where you would have not only the advanced classes were wealthier and whiter, but you had the more experienced and the better teachers teaching them. And so that, the levels are one thing, but the quality of teachers and the experience of teachers is a really profoundly unfair thing. And so I think they're still finding, and I mean, not only Evanston, but schools in general are finding ways to figure that out. And one thing they tried to do recently, since I graduated, was the novel idea of encouraging Black and Latino students to take AP classes. They just realized there were a lot of kids who had the scores, but they either didn't know or they weren't, they didn't want to. And so they started this effort to really encourage, students of color to take AP classes. And who would have guessed it greatly bumped up the participation by Black and Latino students in AP classes. So that was promising. And hopefully they've been trying, I know since I went to school there, more efforts to really make sure that the school was not racially and economically segregating in any possible way if it couldn't help it. So junior year, sophomore year, I'd taken BC Calculus. That's kind of the end of where high school math usually is. But Evanston had enough nerds like me that they offered a multivariable calculus and linear algebra class. There was a teacher, Mr. Benson, who was known for his gruff demeanor and his rants. Every year he would go on a few rants that were known, and some of them were, some of them were always the same time of year, like when the juniors would take the practice SAT. The week before, he would always storm into class because when the juniors took the practice SAT, freshmen, sophomore, and seniors got the day off. And he was livid because he loved learning, and he hated when people weren't learning. So he would storm in. He's, the juniors are taking a test. So no one else is allowed to learn on that day. No one else can learn. Shut it down. Shut it down. So everyone really looked forward to that rant. And then he also had one about lottery tickets. But you never knew when that one would be. It could come in May. It could come in September. It could come in June. Just one day he would just, be looking up and be like, he's like, lottery tickets. It's a tax on those who can't do statistics. So he was a fun teacher. So he taught this class for people who had taken BC Calculus, and it was one semester of multivariable calculus and one semester of linear algebra, which is really incredible. Most high schools, even wealthy high schools and private schools, do not have that as an option. So I was really, really fortunate to get that. Even so for senior year, because I had taken that as a junior, and so we really leveled out, and they really didn't have anything prepared for the 8 or so of us who had taken multivariable calculus our junior year. So what they were doing, the school was really incredible. They got a professor from Northwestern to come in, and she taught an abstract algebra class to us, which I think was a bit advanced. It was certainly a fun class and a great exposure to college level math. It was an interesting experience. It was a really, really great class, and we got exposed to a lot of proofs and a lot of higher algebra that people don't usually get till probably their junior year of college usually. But that was really great. And it was really, really great that the school was able to, arrange for a Northwestern professor to come over and teach high school kids for a period a day. I also, more AP chemistry and physics. Senior year was really when you could do electives if you had taken all the other classes. So for English, I took a creative writing class, which was a lot of fun. I took, some arts classes. I took the electronic music class I talked about. For me, it was a school that had, really every opportunity you could ask for. And for a student like me who came in with really supportive parents who had been to college and kind of knew what they needed to do and what I needed to do to be successful and to be, kind of happy, sharp at math and ahead of the curve on that, it was really, really all I could ask for. For students who were in different positions, they may not have gotten the same experience or they may not feel the same way. And I think that is the big challenge for Evanston right now, because I truly feel, even after going to college, talking with everyone, I don't think there was anyone who had a school I heard of that I felt was, oh, wow, that was much better than my school, or I thought I would have gotten a better education there. After high school, like I said, 85% of the kids at Evanston after they graduated went to college. There was a pretty robust college counseling program in pure size, but because the class was so big, it really, per student, didn't have that much support. Like I said, we graduated with about 850 kids. Probably over 800 of them are going to college, or around 800. There was only maybe 8 counselors per grade, even if that. So that's 100 kids per counselor. So that is a lot. And if you really didn't have support from home or didn't have someone who could help you out, it would have been tough. I mean, luckily, my older brother was 2 grades ahead, and so I'd been through the process. My parents had both did undergrad and grad school, so they were familiar with the process. So luckily, I had the support there. The college counselor, I met with them a few times. They were kind of helpful, but mostly I just, I chose schools based on, I was close friends with a lot of my brother's friends, so I just ended up applying to schools that they went to, and luckily got into a few good ones. From there, I went off to school. I ended up I applied to major in engineering. I applied to engineering schools because in all my high school physics classrooms, they had all these posters that were like, oh, do you like science? Do you like math? You should do engineering in college. So I thought, okay, these posters wouldn't lie to me. So I signed up for engineering, and I ended up getting into the engineering school at Tufts University outside of Boston and the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And both very good schools. The University of Illinois, the engineering program is higher ranked than at Tufts, but the Tufts kind of overall is maybe more prestigious than the University of Illinois. And the big thing ended up being the cost. The University of Illinois, I got in-state tuition, but I didn't really get much else scholarships, whereas Tufts is a smaller, more endowed school, and they were actually able to offer me enough scholarships that the tuition bill was going to be the same pretty much within a few $1,000s, whether I went to the University of Illinois or Tufts. So I ended up choosing Tufts University to get out of Illinois for a little bit. Stuck with engineering the whole time, but didn't really like it, so I majored in math as well. And then after that, I went right back to schools. I started working for an education nonprofit in Boston after I graduated, worked there for 3 years, worked for Boston Public Schools at the central office for 4 years. And then I found myself back at grad school at the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy for a master's in public policy, whereas one of my extracurricular activities, I started a podcast called Pencils Down. And that is where we will end today. Thanks again to all our guests for joining us. Thank you all for listening. And thank you to everyone who has helped bring to fruition this first season of the show. This has been Pencils Down, a University of Chicago public policy podcast production. You can find more of our podcasts at our website, uc3p.org, or wherever podcasts are found. For Pencils Down, I'm Sam Zuckert. We'll be back next season, and I hope to see you all there.